Thank you. Good evening, and a happy new year, and welcome to the Scituate Planning Board, Thursday, January 8th, 2026. Planning board hearing to be held here at the select board hearing room. We have a posted agenda. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? First on our agenda is the public hearing, the zoning bylaw changes, updates and changes for the 2026 annual town meeting, which is on April 13th. April 13th. Including definitions, updates, reviews in section 50 Water Resource Protection District, section 600. Ms. Joseph.
I have to read.
Oh, you have to read it, sorry.
Notice is hereby given pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, that a public hearing will be held by the Scituate Planning Board on Thursday, January 8, 2026, at 6:30 p.m. in the Select Board Hearing Room, Town Hall, 600 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Scituate, Massachusetts, to consider amendments to the Scituate zoning bylaw as described below. These amendments will appear as articles on the warrant for the annual town meeting commencing April 13, 2026. All references below to refer to sections of the zoning bylaw. 1. Amendment to section 200 definitions. 2. Amendments to section 420 table of uses. 3. Amendment to section 450 special provisions applicable to all districts. 4. Amendments to section 520 Water Resource Protection District. 5. Amendments to section 580 Village Center and Neighborhood District. 6. Amendments to section 600 dimensional regulations. The text of the current zoning bylaw, the current zoning map, the complete text of the proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw are available for inspection during normal business hours, etc., etc., etc.
Right, so this was posted on December 19th. It was in the paper on December 25th and January 1st. So we've met the advertising requirements for 2 weeks prior to a public hearing. Okay, right. So I'll go through each article, each thing one by one. Okay. All right, definitions. We're adding a new definition for a modular dwelling unit. The modular dwelling unit is taken right out of the accessory dwelling regulations. We're adding we're updating the definition of impervious surface to match the stormwater regulations and code bylaw changes. Yeah, I think we should ask for comments as we go on each one. Okay. I mean, I think that makes, then people can see the writing on the board so that they can, be aware. Any comments from the board or any comments from the public?
Yeah.
You've got a person.
Yep. Yeah.
I'll help here. Ms. Marianne, just you should be able to unmute just your name, address, and go ahead with your comment. There you
go. Thank you. Good evening, Marianne Lewis, 18 Lighthouse Road, Scituate, Mass. On the definitions of impervious surface, I would suggest that seems like a overly broad, wide net that you're casting. And I would just caution the board, it doesn't seem like, from moving forward on that, to me anyway, it doesn't seem like there's anything left to for surface material other than grass. I don't know if I'm missing something or if anyone has a different thought about what else could, be there. The previous definition did allow, it seemed to allow anyway, gravel, patios that had, pervious pavers, you know, where there was spacing in between the pavers, you know, so that the water could seep into the ground. Uh, so compacted dirt surfaces, gravel, and pervious pavers seem to be acceptable before. I'm just curious what the thinking was. And does anyone have any other suggested material that wouldn't be considered impervious, other than, I suppose, grass? But some areas aren't suitable for grass. You know, grass doesn't grow in certain areas, as a lot of folks know, given how close we are to the ocean and whatnot.
All right, so the definition has already been in the revised regulations, which were adopted at the end of October. Basically, we're saying that you have to consider these surfaces as impervious for calculations. Doesn't mean that you can't have a best management practice of pervious paper, adding some, space and some stone underneath so that you can mitigate some of the impacts of the runoff.
Sorry, Karen, you cut out a little bit in the middle of what is considered like pervious. Could you just cite a few examples?
Well, you can still have a pervious paver. It has to be considered impervious for the calculation, but you can still do a paver and have the joint spacing and some of the gravel underneath and stone underneath as the best management practice to help mitigate the impervious.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little bit confused, and I appreciate the education on this. So when you say for purposes of the calculation, you're talking about the 25%?
Yeah, we are talking about the 25%, yes.
So all these things that are articulated as impervious surface, it doesn't, when you include those in the 25%, it doesn't seem like it would leave a lot of room for either landscaping or, the development of an addition or a residential, either new construction or redevelopment of an existing.
There's plenty of room for landscaping. This is just a definition.
I understand, but when you include everything except grass, I would just caution that I think that is casting too wide a net and limiting options, in the sense that it's foreseeable, I think, that you could have construction of a new residential home or redevelopment of a residential home, that when you include all these as part of your 25% calculation, you're either going to end up with like a house in the center of a pool of mud, because nothing, if you can't grow grass there, all these have calculated, or you're going to end up with, a tiny house on a, on a lot with a bunch of pervious pavers.
I don't think that's the case. The only changes to this is the red changes. What basically it means is you'll have to get a stormwater permit.
Which I think is, well, exactly. I think you probably just answered my question, which is it's designed to mandate a stormwater permit, irrespective of the size of the house, or even if the house came in at whatever, say 20%, and you couldn't do any landscaping other than grass. I mean, there's a lot of residential areas that can't grow grass because,
All right, excuse me.
yeah.
I think this is pretty generic, and it has to do with 25%.
It doesn't have to,
Really,
that's in the stormwater bylaw. This is just a definition.
And it's being made more than it really is. It's just, as you pointed out, a definition, and it's being made to be more than it is. It's very simple.
I understand, but what you've, so it's not that simple to me, so I apologize that I don't have the same capacity. But to me, I interpret it as you are increasing the amount of materials by definition that make up impervious surface. And by doing that, you are limiting options for folks, either in terms of landscaping or in terms of, a footprint of either a developed or redeveloped structure. And I think by doing that, it seems way too restrictive in terms of the broadened net that you're casting on the definition of
Ms.
impervious.
Lewis, I respectfully disagree. I think as has been pointed out, it is a definition. If somebody is going to come in with more than is necessary, they have to get a stormwater permit. That's the bottom line, stormwater permit. And we've had situations in one particular development where people have come in and asked for swimming pools. And they've had to adhere to a stormwater permit because they have increased their impervious, whatever, over the 25%. So they had to mitigate and move a couple of things so that they could put in their swimming pool. Don't make this any more than it really needs to be. It's just a definition that leads you to a stormwater permit.
That requires you to obtain a stormwater permit.
Yes.
If you meet the thresholds, not if you don't meet the thresholds, then you don't need a stormwater permit.
Understood. My comment and understanding and caution and concern is that by casting a broader definition, you are in essence imposing further restrictions that would so it would mandate a stormwater permit. And so for some folks, that's going to be cost prohibitive from doing projects.
That is our intent. We are looking to further codify our stormwater permit. You'll see that when we go through the stormwater permit.
Thank you.
Okay, moving. Anybody else on the line?
I can't see. Seth is helping us because I'm displaying the
Anybody else on the
text.
line?
Ms. Lambert, you have no virtual hands raised. You're all set.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next section of changes are amendments to section 420, table of use regulation. We're amending several items. For a single family, number one, A1, single family attached dwelling from Y to N in the DBP district. B, two-family dwelling subject to section 430.1, add in VCN and change no to Y in the NRN district. D, accessory dwelling subject to 530, add Y to R1, R2, R3, and B districts. M, child care facility, change no to Y in NRCR and DCR districts. N, live work, change Y to N in NRN and SP to N in the DBP district. O, mixed use building, add SP to B and change Y to N in NRN district and SP to N in the DBP district. What we discovered is, as a result of MBTA and accessory dwellings, we had some minor things in the table that were neglected to be changed. So we're trying to catch up with those changes right now.
Minor housekeeping.
It's minor housekeeping.
We got a hand.
You have a hand raised there? No, I do see that.
That's Seth.
No virtual hands raised, Ms. Lambert.
No, that's set over there before.
Okay. All right, the next one is amendments to section 450, special provisions applicable to all districts. We want to add a new section 450.5 for construction site preparation standards to include no site work shall begin until all permits are received and storage of materials is incidental to site preparation. I think that the self-explanatory, the construction shouldn't begin until all permits are received, and he shouldn't be doing earthwork and storing earth materials on sites that isn't incidental to the project.
In other words, don't clear cut the lot before you come in and get a permit.
Correct. Any questions on that one? What any vote off?
Okay. So that's.
The number 4, amendments to section 520 Water Resource Protection District. We're amending section 520.4 buffer zone to clarify the non-disturbance buffer zone and removal of invasive species. We have wording in there under 520.42 that was based on comments received at the workshop to put in some physical removal or cutting of invasive species, and we clarified the language in the non-disturbance buffer zone. Okay, thanks. Any questions? Number 5, set changes to 580, Village Center Neighborhood District. Amend table 1, allow building types in the VCN district to change cottage and cottage court from Y to N in the NDTV district and change SP to N in DBP district for a live work building and mixed use building. If our NDTV district is our mandatory mixed use district, you certainly don't want cottage and cottage court there. And our basically the DBP district has been designed that that's space commercial development. So these were things that the housekeeping, we missed them along the way. Any questions?
It's so long to write the bylaw, you forget to look at.
All right, the next one is changes to section 600 dimensional regulations. The first one is to amend 610.1 lot area to say that all buildable lot area must be contiguous. This is, the building commissioner wanted a clarification on that. Any questions? The next one is to 620.1 building height. We wanted clarification on building heights so that because of our definition is to the midpoint of a gable, we wanted to put in the maximum height that you can have. For residential districts, it's already here, we're just reiterating it. And the standard practice has been to add 5 feet above to the top of the ridge. And so it's just clarifying that as a practice that has been being done for a while.
Yeah. Any questions?
The next changes in 620.3 setback and yard requirements. Changing the required rear setback from 8 feet to 15 feet in the R1 and R2 districts. This is because, we want to give every property owner the proper privacy that they deserve.
I think we have a raised hand.
Oh, we most certainly do, Ms. Lambert. One moment here. Ms. Lewis, you should be able to unmute. Same drill here. Name, address, go ahead with your comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Mary Ann Lewis, 18 Lighthouse Road in Scituate. This is, I'm trying to follow along on 2 different tablets here, so I appreciate your patience. The required setback in R1 and R2 is currently what, and what is the proposed change to?
It's currently 8 feet, it's proposed to be changed to 15 feet.
So, was there any analysis done on, what the sort of average size lot is in those residential districts? And the reason I ask is it's obviously at some point when zoning was, and I'm not sure when these were implemented, but the town in their wisdom, whatever year that was, decided to, break the town down into three residential sectors, and I assume that some type of study was done on sort of what they felt the needs were at the time, and felt that, those setbacks, did allow enough sort of privacy. I feel like it's a subjective reasoning behind that. I didn't know if there was a groundswell, that the board felt prompted this. Those setbacks have been in place for a very, very long time.
Well, the R1 district requires a 40,000 square foot lot size. So I
Right.
don't think, and we're going to 15 feet for the rear yard is an imposition. R2 is 20,000 square foot lot size, and again, I don't think it's an imposition. Nothing was changed in the R3 district, which still allows 8 feet for a one-story detached accessory building. So we did not change the district that would have the most problems should that be, for a detached building.
Are you proposing a change for setbacks in R3 regarding something other than dwellings? In other words, stairways or decks? Things
That's a
without.
different article. That's a different article.
Okay, well, I'll comment on that, but again, I would caution against the setbacks, and like I don't know, was anyone in R2 or R3 reaching out to the board? I mean, R1 or R2 reaching out to the board regarding these setbacks?
Now, the
Or
board decided to implement this themselves.
okay, so it was the board's initiative, or
It's the
your
board's initiative.
initiative, one or the other, right? Or both?
Yes, both.
Based on feedback that we get, yes.
What's that? I'm sorry, I think that was Patty, but I can't.
Based on feedback that we hear from people who are building.
Thank you, Patty. So I assume that this is also feedback though, right? The public hearing and,
Yes.
okay, so I appreciate the board taking this current feedback into consideration as well.
Okay.
All right, the last change is to section 620.4. And that's a requirement for decks and patios and extending into the setback. Right now, decks and patios can extend all the way into the setback. And so now we're saying decks over 30 inches above grade, including balconies, stairways, landings, shall meet the requirement of the preceding paragraph. In number C above, you can't project more than 18 inches into the setback for cornices and eaves. So this is basically saying the same thing. You can't, for decks above 30 inches, including balconies, you can't extend more than 30 inches into the setback.
And Ms. Lambert, Ms. Lewis does have a comment here if you.
Okay.
Yep, Ms. Lewis, go right ahead.
Thank you, Seth. Mary Ann Lewis, 18 Lighthouse Road, Scituate. I would like to voice my very strong objection to this. And R3, as you previously stated, Karen, is a very different zone with very different considerations than R2 and R3, the majority of homes anyway, in the respective districts. Many of the homes that are built in R3 were built before zoning was adopted by the town. I myself am on a 40, I think it's a 43 or maybe 4,400 tops square foot lot. And and when you talk about privacy, I happen to be my house is elevated. I'm in between two neighbors. I'm in the middle of two neighbors whose homes are on the street level. And the fact that my deck is elevated actually creates more privacy for all three homes than it would if I was at the same street level or patio level as my two neighbors. And I dare say there are probably more situations like that in R3 than not. And so I would strongly ask the board to reconsider this and not include this in the bylaw change. This is a very significant change. And when you're talking about lot sizes that are 3,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet, again, my concern is you're very much limiting where folks can sort of have a little elbow room. And, I think anyone at least that buys out around, where I currently live is, you understand how tight the lots are. You understand that there's not going to be elbow room. You understand that the setbacks are going to be very, very tight. So I think, again, it's an overly restrictive proposed change. And I think lots of folks that live in the R3 districts have sort of conceded the privacy, um, priority, if you will, a factor compared to, them wanting to sort of live in the areas that tend to be in those tight residential zones. And I appreciate the fact, Karen, that the board has met its legal obligations in terms of notice. But when you tell me that you noticed this meeting for, at Christmas and New Year's Day, I don't think that is in the spirit of transparency and affording folks who probably aren't paying attention to these types of significant bylaw changes, when they're reveling in the holiday season.
Well, Mary Ann, let me tell you, we're supposed to have final wording in December to the select board. We don't think it's fair to have that so that when the warrant is still open, we're supposed to have our final wording. We don't think it's fair to have public hearings in December for the reason you just stated. So we've moved it to January, but we're working with a timeline for advisory, select board, everybody else to make their comments and still have town meeting when it's supposed to be.
Well,
We're on a very tight timeline as well.
again, I understand what you're saying in terms of this go around, but you could have these discussions for the subsequent year's town meeting. If you can't get the select board to change either the date of town meeting or the warrant notification requirements that you're subject to, that would be my suggestion. Because I think they're very significant changes and they're not innocuous, especially in the R3 zone, just because of how tight it is. I mean, obviously there's a record.
Excuse me, if I may interrupt. One of the things that we were really concerned about in the R3 district was builders, whomever, pushing everything right to the lot line. Stairwells that are right on the lot line. No. Everybody is entitled, we all have to live within certain parameters, whether we like it or not. These bylaws, such as they are, have been around for a very, very long time. And as a matter of fact, forgive me if I'm wrong, Karen, we talked about this back in November. This is not something that just came out of the blue.
No, we've been talking about bylaw changes since September, October.
Okay, so the only difference here is the public hearing notice didn't go into the paper until the end of December. Well, it's been here, it's been around, you either pay attention or you don't.
And so this is also in response to the complaints that we're getting, that the building department is getting and the planning board is getting with particularly ADUs.
Right.
And so we decided to be proactive and try to do something about it to make sure all residents would have privacy.
And benefit from nobody wants to sit in a house or whatever and put their hand out the window and have the guy next door put mustard on their hot dog. We don't want that. No, so we have to have some semblance of order here. Not everyone is gonna like this, but
So we've noted your strong objection to this, bylaw.
Well, may I speak without interruption, Ann?
go right ahead, my dear.
Thank you, and your condescending remarks and attitude and interruptions would be appreciated if you didn't engage in that. I can put mustard on my neighbor's hot dog. So, you know, they've been around, to your point, a long time, and they've worked fine for a long time. And this district is tight. It's not because, you know, that's not new. We can't create bigger size lots in R3 or R2 or R1 for that matter. But if the purpose of this is about accessory dwelling units and the town is proposing a change regarding setbacks, I don't know if you've checked with the Attorney General to see if that's a restriction that they're going to consider to be,
This has
you know.
nothing to do with that, Mary Ann. This has just something to do with decks and stairs, etc. It has nothing to do with the actual ADU dwelling.
Karen, I'm not yelling. Please don't, please.
People
I mean,
complain they can't hear. I'm trying to make sure everybody can hear. I'm sitting way across the room from the microphone.
okay, thank you. But I would just suggest that maybe it's wise to check with the Attorney General, because I don't know if they're going to view that as something that is a restrictive policy motivated by trying to, put a damper on the Affordable Homes Act, where ADUs, are by right. So I would just caution the board against that. Again, register my strong opposition just because of the unique challenges in particularly in R3, given the tightness of the lots.
So I will tell you, I have had, all these zoning bylaws have been reviewed by town council.
I know they've been reviewed by town council. Yes, I understand that. So, and the
Like I
town,
said-
and there were many things in the that have been proposed where the Attorney General came back on the proposed approved by town council that they questioned, so who knows, and it remains to be seen if they'll be litigated.
But that's not for us. Mr.
That's not for us.
We got a passing grade on that. I'm going to tell you that this is in response to R3 in particular, which is tight, and they don't want it to be any tighter than it already is. That's what this is for, and they'll let town meeting decide that.
Right.
Thank you.
Anybody
else?
Cool, it's up to
All
you.
right, sure, I'll go first. Greg Morse, 167 Tack Factory Pond Drive. Having surveyed properties, designed a bunch of properties here in town, I don't see this as a super big constraint in the R2 or the R1 zoning districts. I guess I would echo the concerns of Ms. Lewis in the R3 zoning district. And especially if you're in a FEMA floodplain, I would echo the issue. There are hundreds of decks that you're putting into non-compliance by adopting this. And this doesn't affect just side yards, it also affects rear yards. And you have all the decks along the seawalls that'll become affected because that's actually a 20-foot rear yard setback. So you're putting a lot of people into non-compliance. And people that have had these decks for years and years and years, lots that are small. And, the way that this is written, I have kind of 2 or 3 things to go over with this, but understanding your concern that you don't want people going up to the lot line, would the board consider some ulterior setback? Could it be half the distance to the setback or half the distance to the lot line, as opposed to all the way to it? I think that would give some flexibility to people. Secondly, when I read this, your first sentence here includes a clause that says, provided that drainage from such development does not leave the property. I'd ask if the board could strike that language. Do you have a stormwater bylaw to address stormwater and drainage issues? There are also civil and legal remedies if there are issues caused by someone's deck or someone's. You've also included driveways, walkways, and patios. Driveways have to physically cross the front lot line, and a lot of houses, the driveway water goes out to the street. You can't capture all the water on the lot. Your stormwater bylaw takes care of drainage. So again, I would just ask if you can strike that from the first sentence. And then the other concern is with respect to the FEMA floodplain. A lot of these houses, most of them being in the R3 zone, are in non-compliance with FEMA. They need to be raised, they need to go up in the air. Your last sentence here, the last couple of words is in regards to decks, balconies, stairs, and landings shall not be allowed to create a non-conformity where none exists. And this is the problem I have an issue with, and shall not be allowed to increase a non-conformity where one exists. I'm thinking of a case where there's an existing house, has an existing deck on the side or on the front of it, and they need to go up 5 feet for FEMA compliance. They're just gonna pick the house up and go up 5 feet. They need to add that extra steps to get up to their house. And this is saying that they can't do that they can't increase the non-conformity.
I don't see that. I don't see that at all. And I think when we're talking about dwellings on 3,500 square feet, or 4,500 square feet, even the 5,000 square foot lots, most of them are non-conforming to begin with. And yes, they've been around for a very long time.
Can I ask when you said you don't see that language? I printed this off the town's website.
I will ask, the language came directly from the building commissioner. I will speak to the building commissioner about the language.
This
Can
is,
you repeat that again?
sure, so,
Language, sorry, I just wanna make sure I'm
Yeah,
hearing
it's
exactly what you're saying.
it's the bottom of section D. It says, and shall not be allowed to increase a non-conformity where one exists.
So what you're saying, is if you lift the house and you need to put stairs on it, coming down, it would be more non-conforming than it was prior to
Yes.
that.
Yes,
But
even
that's-
if there's already stairs there, that's already creating your non-conformity, these existing stairs. But you're not allowed to increase it, yet you need to increase the number of stairs to get up to that new FEMA.
I don't see a problem with that. I really don't.
I'll talk to the building
It's-
commissioner, that's all I did,
it's just,
So maybe there should
everything
be-
is, open to review. This doesn't happen in a vacuum.
No, it doesn't.
It does not. And in terms of your building permit, in terms of stormwater, in terms of FEMA, in terms of all of it, there are many hoops that you need to go through. And then, of course, we have the ever illustrious zoning board of appeals, if you go in for a section 6 finding, to see if you can get relief for your non-conforming property.
You're asking people to come into FEMA compliance, but then asking them or making them
No,
go to the zoning board to ask for relief. You could fix it by eliminating this one little piece of the sentence, is all I'm saying. It helps the residents in town, but,
Well, no, and we'll speak to
Thank
the
you.
vote.
and then lastly, I wanted to ask if the board would consider any sort of grandfathering clause in this for projects that have already received permits. There are projects that have gone to the Conservation Commission, gone to the zoning board, that don't have their building permits in hand yet, that have all their other permits in hand. And now we're gonna have to be redesigned and re-permitted because this bylaw becomes retroactive back to Christmas Day.
That is yes.
Yes, it does.
And so,
But the building permit is the guarantee that that your building permit's your guarantee.
so I have clients that have applied for building permits and they haven't been issued, and they applied before Christmas Day when this was even advertised. And They followed all proper procedures. Now they're being penalized because of this. This board did adopt a similar grandfathering when you changed your lot shape. You required that 30-foot circle 2 years ago. You could include a simple clause on this that, projects which had all permits prior to whatever day you want to choose, are exempt from this requirement. I don't know the number of projects that are out there that it would apply to, but I know that there's at least 2 or 3 that are directly affected.
So why haven't they been issued a building permit yet? We don't do that, so how come they haven't done that?
It's multiple reasons. Either they've applied to the building department and the building department hasn't gotten to it yet, or maybe they've gotten all their approvals with the zoning board, they've gotten their approvals with the conservation commission, they've given it to the next phase, which is the contractor to come in and apply, but they need their PERS ratings, they need structural stamps and everything like that, and those don't require permits with the town, but it's all required for that building permit. They just haven't maybe got the financing yet.
And this would be you.
This does lead to me, yes. So, are you,
All right.
We need to-
Carrie Johnson, K&E Construction, and online I have my partner Ed Johnson and the clients that have hired me, Andy and Keith Lynn. So I don't know if they're still on, but anyway,
Okay.
we designed a house, we went ahead and got all of our permits or approvals and whatnot. And then it comes time to submit. So we submitted on the 23rd of December for our full permits. We have the house plans and structurals, everything said and done. And Bob had come back at that point and said, hey, this was a little bit after the holiday, I guess. There was a public notification that there is a proposal to change the zoning bylaws. And he had reached out to town council, and town council at that time said, we're going to enforce it now as if it's happened. If that's the case, what's the point of having a public hearing? Because there's no justification for me to have been denied that permit for a future proposal that hasn't happened yet. So I know, number one, there might be people that come in and submit behind me, but I did submit before this was public. I have been denied, and now what's happening is the clients that have been hired for have to go through a full-blown redesign, which just costs time and money. It was completely unexpected. And it throws everything off from the HERS audit to structural to everything. You had mentioned going up to the lot lines. I hear you on that. My parents are still at 119 Turner. I grew up there. I know that area intimately. The house that I designed for 50 Oceanside, which is the property, 50 Oceanside, I held the access to the home. So it's an elevated house, and you obviously have to have stairs to get in. And I have one in the rear and one coming up from the side. And I did hold that in. So I had a 5-foot perimeter. So my encumbrance on the setback was 3 feet. So the deck, I know they're small, but I have copies of the plans. So I was only pushing it to the 3 feet. I did leave 5 feet all the way walk around. But I'm here tonight to ask, I'm having a hard time understanding why I've been denied for something that has not even gone to public hearing and been voted on. I believe that there should be some sort of grandfather. We had it in the HERS, when HERS rating came about too, the state gave a leeway for all those people that had spent all that money in house plans, approvals and whatnot to have a gavel go down. If you know it's coming, then shame on you for not making adjustments. But we had no idea. We've been dealing and building and designing for 6-8 months, and then we get everything ready and we get all of our approvals, everybody's so excited, and then to be told, I'm sorry, you need to redesign because there may or may not be a bylaw that's gonna be adopted in April.
Well, I don't think Mr. Morse's suggested language is gonna work because all permits have not been obtained in this case. The building permit has not been obtained. So if you would like to consider something, we'd have to carefully work on the wording so we get the wording right.
Yeah, I think that's a good consideration. I think we should do that.
I mean, when we did the when we went from VCN, when we went from VBOD to VCN, we said, any, shall not apply to any application filed with the planning board and town clerk, prior to, we set a date, April 1st, 2019. So we may want to, if you're willing to consider something like that, we may want to pick a date.
I would consider that.
I would
like
consider that.
I would agree with that as well.
The
Yes.
date is the date at which the application has been submitted. In other words, it's confirmed that the building permit has been applied for. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, that's what we have to decide.
No, but I'm asking you a
Yes,
question.
right.
Right, it's not that it's been issued, but it's been requested,
Right,
right?
Yeah,
right.
I would also strongly consider
I
the
need your,
non-conformity
excuse me,
setback.
you need to give your name and address, please.
if I may,
If you can speak,
You
you just
can
have to
speak,
give
but
your
you
name
need
and
to name and
address.
Carly Tobias, Rockwood Design. I would also strongly consider the non-conformity setback with the stairs and us lifting the house up. It affects the non-conformity. You have to put more stairs to be able to get up to your house. Unless you're gonna tell your clients that they're gonna lose gross floor area of their existing house that's been there for so many years. I mean, we're trying to work with you, we're trying to work with the state, and we're trying to work with the federal government. But that's what's happening for us as architects, as civil engineers, and as engineers. I would strongly consider that when dealing with the last line too.
if I may, if Rockwood Design, but, to capitalize on what Greg was saying, if you get an approval from zoning, it's good for 2 years. If you get an approval from conservation, it's 2 or 3 years. So if someone's in the, because I have people finally getting permits now that we were working on a year and a half, 2 years ago. Plus with the funding, it takes time to do it, so they're already approved at these boards. So that date that you go back to, as far as having their zoning or conservation, already adopted, but even whether it's applied for, even to go to zoning and conservation, sometimes it's 3 months, 4 months. So that now you're all approved, and because all my clients, and they go to the next step, when you talk about pulling the building permit, the only one that pulls the building permit is the contractor. And I get people talking to 2 or 3 contractors, and maybe 8 months later, they finally decide on somebody. That's all within the process. So that timing has to be considered.
We're not looking to give our clients false hope and waste time and money. I mean, trying to make this affordable for everyone.
Just one more comment, in the HERS world, how it worked is after it was passed, the state came and said, okay, it passed, so everybody now knows it's coming, because it's real. And I believe it was a building inspector didn't enforce it for 1 year's time after it passed, like they have to go back and double check that, but I think it was about a year that, even though it was technically on the books, because they gave builders and whatnot time to do exactly what that John just said. And then it worked fine. But right now, it's just being enforced before approved, and to have to go back to the drawing board is hard.
Well, I mean, we're just going in accordance with state law. I mean, state law tells you, once you submit something, you go back, once you submit your drawing changes, it goes back to the date that it's advertised. And so we're just going with that.
But if that's the case, I submitted before it was advertised.
Right, I mean,
I think that was
Really?
I think he misspoke on that.
well, you said the building permit was denied.
Yes, correct.
So-
By Bob and town council chimed in on it.
So-
But it was denied, if I understand what you're saying, because of this group.
Correct, yes, they
It wasn't
said,
denied
yeah, I
because
have
it was
it in
bad.
email
Okay.
saying we might as well just enforce it now.
No, I don't agree with that.
But that's the law, Ann, that's the law.
There has to be some wiggle room here.
Yeah, I agree.
So we can work on, we can try to come up with some type of language that is going to be fair to everybody. So I'm not gonna do that without consulting the building commissioner, because he was very instrumental in putting this forward.
Right.
I mean, so,
What would be wrong with making effective when it passes?
I agree with
It
that.
passes down.
I agree, I mean, everybody's trying to
Why not,
cover
why not
everybody.
make it effective then? I mean, you all know about it, and, yeah, till town meeting basically to figure it out. I don't know why, I don't get why the building inspector is enforcing something that hasn't passed yet. That seems a little.
I think
crazy.
I think it's a great area.
Well, I mean, it's a gray area,
I know.
but it just seems to me that it's arbitrary. It's, it's being, he's assuming that you're gonna pass, right? And it's, you could just as likely not pass.
right, it could like, so if
I think
town
it's a little
meeting,
presumptive.
if town meeting is April 13th.
Yeah.
It's likely gonna go 2 nights. But if we were going to be a little bit more lenient, I mean, we could say make effective April 15th. That way it's, it's cleared, or if you wanna pick a different date, but I'm just going by,
Yeah, April 15th sounds good.
I'm just going by what you're saying,
I think that there does need to be, for people who are already in this process, it's not fair to punish them for something that the state has decided.
There is another consideration too, as we have found out in the past. It may be passed to town meeting, but until it is approved by the AG, it could be changed, it could be anything.
right, but it still goes back to the date that it's
Still goes
advertised.
back to the day it's passed, so
So,
I think
okay,
that's the day, or the day after is the 15th.
So I think that we
April
do,
15th,
like, we've
so, yeah,
done in other things like this, like I said, it's not fair to punish somebody who's done a lot of work, and
Right.
spent a lot of money.
we're not unreasonable.
no, I know.
Really not
And
unreasonable.
I don't know why, but those talk to Mr. Vogel about this, because
Okay.
he was extremely instrumental in UBS.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he's great, and I'm sure he just wants everybody to be on the same page, that's all. So,
And then
Okay.
there's another.
Yes, ma'am. Your name and address, please?
Julie Johnson, Customer Designs, Greenview at Marshfield. I just wanna thank you for having this last 5 minutes of conversation. And considering that in the design world, we're just talking to people who are going to build probably in September, August, September 26th. So we're in the process now of putting that together and getting all that permitting and going to conservation, going to zoning, because it takes 3 to 6 months. So having that till April, now anyone we talk to between now and April, we can ready them for this, whatever the change is gonna be, or that it might be a change, or it's a change that could be this or it could be that. But at least we're educated and we can help our customers have a good expectation of what's happening down the road. I've got several jobs in permitting right now that if this was to happen today and they would be rejected, it's huge expense. It's in the emotion of all of this. I don't even.
I built a house.
Devastating.
I built a house, yeah, that
People
was-
are investing large amounts of money in themselves, in these projects, and it's devastating.
This is why we have these meetings, so that we can
So I
hear people's
appreciate
concerns.
The last 10 minutes.
Yeah, so we can hear your concerns, so Karen, we can get that. After you talk to Bob and,
Yeah, I mean, you have another hand, right?
oh,
Can we just go back?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should get, maybe that's someone else on this.
Ms. Lewis, are you unmuted?
Ms. Lewis, you should be able to unmute right now.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure that I raised my hand, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak anyway. From some historic reference, and I know we're living in a very different time, but when zoning laws were first introduced in the town, just as another example of what the previous speakers have articulated, in 1953, they were passed in 1953. They weren't implemented. I believe I have my dates right. Till 1956. But the point is, it was 3 years. And I know that there's, the information highway obviously has greatly improved since then. But to all the previous, out of respect for all the previous professions and their clients, It is a long process, so I appreciate very much that the board's willingness to look at sort of an effective date in the future. I would encourage not 3 years, but something maybe more than 3 months. And I defer to the ones that are in the business that, is effective, like the date of after, Ann, you pointed out the Attorney General's review may make a little more sense, and I'd just throw my 2 cents in for that. But, in the 50s, obviously, we don't need to wait 3 years because it's 2026, but maybe something more than 3 months. I don't know what the magic number is, but the date, and to your point of the Attorney General review might make the most sense, but again, I defer to the experts. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
So I was just gonna go back, and you can speak to this more about the stair issue, because I'm just thinking about people raising their houses.
Well, I'll talk to Bob Vogel.
Talk about
I mean,
that too.
Bob, Bob wrote that part too,
Okay.
so, I will talk to him and say, do we need clarification that, because I'm sure that's not what Bob meant.
Yeah, and maybe there's
I'm sure that's not what he meant, so I'll talk to him next week, he'll be back in the office next week. And I'll talk to him.
Okay, thank you.
So then, what does the board want to do? You have 2 options. You can close the public hearing tonight, or you can continue it to your next meeting on January 22nd to give me time to try to look at these issues that have been identified before we close the public hearing.
We just leave this one open and close everything.
We can, you can, if that's how you word your motion, you can word your motion so that it's everything,
Focus on the team.
just close the public hearing for all except for the modifications in 6:20.4.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I think that should be.
And part, timing goes for okay, timing.
We
We'll
have,
change the language. I think we're gonna change the language on this one, right? So if we wait till the 26th, as far as the language goes.
well, I will work with Bob next week, I'll try to get it out to you, and we have time on the 22nd to continue
For
the
the
public.
22nd.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If we approve it on the 22nd, we're good for the 10th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I am
they-
supposed to go to advisory on the 22nd too, but, I'll just tell him I can't, And I don't know when I'm supposed to go to the select board yet for the zoning articles. I've already been for our budget, but I don't know when I'm supposed to go. I think it might be the 20th, but I just tell them where we are.
So we're always the last ones to go on, because they squish us so much, there's so much work to do. And they always have to wait for us, and that's just to make us.
That's life.
That's us. And you push us so much, we'd be a little better off. So if we're just gonna close the public, except for that one section,
Yes.
we can continue that till the 22nd.
Okay, all right.
So moved in a second, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes, let's give a time. I'm gonna give you 7 o'clock.
Okay,
Fine.
We have some things that are before that. I think 7 o'clock will work.
perfect.
Okay.
You know,
All right, thank you, guys.
thank you. Thanks for your input. So now we have a public hearing to amend the stormwater general bylaw section 32050.
They're right here. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Scituate Planning Board on Thursday, January 8th at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Hearing Room, Scituate Town Hall. These amendments and changes will appear together as an article on the warrant annual town meeting, April 13th, 2026. And the total changes are a lot.
But the mayor from Portsmouth Whitney is here to help walk us through it.
Okay, town general bylaws, Do I need to read all of that? Yes, no?
Now, we'll talk about it after we
Go through it.
So could I preface this by saying that part of our stormwater is to be in compliance with MS4? That's what we, so this housekeeping is not just internal, it's for everyone. Thank you.
So can I just say two things first? Remember, we revised the regulations at the end of October. Also, we do not have to have a public hearing for general bylaws. We do it to keep the public informed because we feel it's important for the public.
All right, thanks, and nice to be here again. So my name is Nick Cohen. I am a senior environmental planner with the Portland Wind Group, as you all know, like new faces. And we have been working with Scituate for a number of years on stormwater work, stormwater technical work, compliance work, of which this is just one part. So much of this will be repeat for you. For the new faces, I will go through it quickly, but I can go back and discuss any of the topics in more detail if there are questions from board or folks in the audience. So this is the same general agenda as previous presentations, a little bit of updates given how things have gone over the last few months and progress that's been made. So I'll start with overview of stormwater and the MS4 permit, which the chair just mentioned, just to provide a bit of context. We'll go over the MS4 permits required bylaws, of which this is just one component, and the process for amending them. As was mentioned, the regulations were recently updated, and so the bylaw now needs to kind of catch up to that. There are some other edits that are proposed in the bylaw, which I'll get to in just a couple of minutes. And there have been a public process over the last few months with a meeting in the fall, several meetings in the fall for the regulations that were amended in October. We had a workshop in December, as well as I understand other planning board conversation after that, leading to this public hearing. And of course, leading up to Springtown meeting. So just kind of quick, Stormwater 101. It's important to differentiate here that we're talking about stormwater, which is different than wastewater. Stormwater is water from precipitation that lands on surfaces and flows over those surfaces, generally untreated, and ends up in drainage system and eventually to the nearest water body without treatment, different from wastewater that is treated by a septic system or a wastewater treatment plant in both cases. Can you just go back? In Massachusetts and throughout the country, there is the Clean Water Act. Clean Water Act requires cities and towns like Scituate, who have a drainage system, to have what's called an MS4 permit. That stands for Municipal Separate Sewer System Permit. I will just say MS4, but that permit dictates what a municipality needs to do in order to have one of these drainage systems. The MS4 permit here in Massachusetts has 6 categories that are referred to as minimum control measures, or MCMs. You can just think of them as kind of the categories of compliance that the town needs to meet. They cover different activities and different sectors that need to do different responsibilities in order to try to protect against stormwater pollution. The one example I'll just put out is MCM 6 there is good housekeeping, which is what the town needs to do for its own operations. There's public involvement. And then MCMs 4 and 5 get to construction site runoff and post-construction site runoff respectively. And that's really trying to address stormwater runoff from private properties and construction sites to make sure they're doing what they need to do to protect against stormwater pollution. So the bylaw and the regulations are under MCM 4 and 5 because they address construction sites and post-construction site stormwater management. The MS4 permit has a number of requirements that need to be in that bylaw and regulations. Just as additional context, we're talking about 2 sets of categories here, the construction site and post-construction site. Most cities and towns have one bylaw or one regulation set that they just call the stormwater bylaw, like here in Scituate, but there are 2 separate sets of requirements. And also many municipalities like Scituate have a bylaw that lays out the general requirements and then regulations that lay out the details for how those requirements need to be met, how the town oversees those requirements, all the ins and outs and nitty-gritty details. For this bylaw, the MS4 permit requires that it address land disturbance of 1 acre or more. So that means any project disturbing an acre or more needs to be under the jurisdiction of the bylaw. That threshold can be set lower if desired, as is the case here in Scituate, but all projects need to be reviewed if they disturb 1 acre or more. There's also specific requirements for construction sites, stormwater management, like addressing construction wastes, managing erosion and sediment control. And then on the post-construction side of things, there are very specific performance standards, requirements for best management practices, and other features that need to be into that bylaw. So as Karen was alluding to, at the time of last summer, the existing bylaw and regulations met many of those requirements, but not all of them. And so as a result, EPA required Scituate to meet those requirements by the end of 2025, which was done thanks to the updated regulations that were enacted. The book needs to be closed, or things need to catch up, depending on what analogy you want to use, by updating the bylaw to then meet and match what's in the regulations. So that's the process we're in now. I'll get to that on the next slide, but just for context, and especially for those who haven't been at previous meetings, the bylaw and regulations at the time of last summer did not have the water quality performance standards that EPA requires. There was missing requirements for impaired water bodies. There wasn't the overarching 1 acre threshold, although Scituate did have some thresholds that were less than 1 acre. The kind of umbrella threshold for 1 acre of disturbance was missing. And then there were some other details and best practices that could have been included that we've now updated in the regulations. This is the process that's been followed to date. The next slide, I'll get into the bylaw updates that are pending or that are proposed. But just for that history, the regulations were amended, like I mentioned, in October. There was the planning board workshop in December. I understand at your next meeting, you had additional conversations, and then we're here tonight in a public hearing setting to take public input leading up to town meeting. And then this is just kind of summarizing what's in those proposed edits for the bylaw for the board. These are all, I think, the same as last time, except for the third bullet, which you all requested. For other folks, this is certainly not all encompassing. The devil's definitely in the details in what's in the actual proposed language. These are just the categories of edits in rough order, I'd say, from kind of least complicated to most complicated. So first, we just did some kind of general cleanup for readability, typos, clarity, avoiding duplication where things are in the regulations that are cleaner to just have in the regs and not have in the bylaw, so that you have a simpler document for the bylaw. Second, we've made updates now to reflect what's in the amended stormwater regulations so that things are consistent with the MS4 permit. There was a one court jurisdiction request that I understand the planning board made, which we've now made. And then the last three bullets are some of the more substantive changes. So first of those, there's additional review and documentation now for projects in the Water Resource Protection District. There is an additional 80% threshold that has been added for review and documentation for projects that don't quite meet a threshold for the bylaw that wouldn't necessarily get reviewed otherwise, but just to check those projects to make sure that they are not slipping through the cracks. And in fact, exceeding a threshold, there's this 80% threshold to give an extra check on those projects. And then lastly, but not least, there's a modification to applicability thresholds for all new development and increases in impervious cover. Those last three bullets are really kind of responding to town concerns that we've heard about from conversations with you and Karen and others. So that was reflected in the regulations and now in the updated bylaw. So that's a very quick overview of some complicated changes. Happy to go back and answer any questions about the requirements or the content and go from there.
I'm good.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I'm part of the bias from Rockwood Design again, 1020 Plain Street. With our architect firm, within 1 month of the 6 years that I've been there, with the new ADUs, we triggered 5 stormwater permits. ADUs are for affordable living, and it's impervious to pervious. If it meets all the setbacks, does the stormwater permit or does the board take into consideration or have any lenience or potentially don't have any lenience for ADUs to have a bigger percentage than additions or kind of addressing commercial? I mean, it is a problem we are running into.
The answer is not in Scituate. We haven't, the stormwater bylaw is a stormwater bylaw. If you trigger it for an ADU, we need a stormwater permit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that
And
too.
so
I just didn't know if
we
that's
haven't
ever.
talked about any type of changes or relief for an ADU, because that's not really fair to other developments.
I just didn't know if it was ever talked about or brought to attention. By the firms or anybody else running into that, because
Most of the ADUs we have so far have not had a stormwater permit. They have not triggered the disturbance or the impervious area.
that's because they don't go that far. It's $9,000 to do a stormwater permit. And then the clients opt out to doing that because just doing the permit process is very expensive. And that's not putting in the system, that's another $20,000 to $30,000. So it's not very affordable. I just wanna put it out there, I just don't know if the board knows, I just wanna kind of put it out there as
We
conversation.
We are aware of, we hear that a lot, that it
Okay.
costs too much money. We are concerned about the town as a whole. We need to be concerned if it's a little house or a big development. Our concerns are always the same, which is we have to make sure that the disturbance does not exceed the 25%, because we are requiring a stormwater permit, because I have to tell you that literally by tenths of a percentage, they squeeze it. And that is not fair to the neighbors or to anybody else who's applying. So we are pretty stringent on stormwater.
And one of the things I think, this affordable element, the ADU, that's supposed to bring in all of this affordable housing theoretically. An ADU at this point in time costs anywhere between $150,000 and $250,000.
No, it's like $350.
Well, there you go.
No, they're expensive.
And if this was supposed to be the state's way of,
Yeah, we can put enough apartments in, and us as people were getting taxed for that, not being able to put in enough affordable housing into our apartments because we don't have enough land for that, so we're doing affordable housing. I get it, there's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of unknowns, and everybody's covering everything. I just wanted to kind of speak on that behalf, because our firm is getting ADUs, and so I'm just spending time with the planning board, so
And I think that's an interesting concept, because I think when they wrote that, like they did the MBTA, they kind of wrote it on the fly.
Yeah,
they did.
And we are picking up the pieces after that all the way along, and they are no way affordable in the town of Scituate, I'm sorry.
and not in many towns.
Many times, yeah, I mean, everybody wants to live here, which is fine, but the cost of land, everybody wants to make money, and that's the bottom line, is everybody wants to make as much money as they can from their product. So that's kind of out of our purview, we don't talk dollars here, but we are aware of all of those issues.
it certainly isn't easy.
And it's not, and I appreciate a lot
It's
these
just,
conversations, I think that picking up the pieces. The
And-
firms are, the civil engineers are, the engineers are, it's hard with this gray area. The building commissioners are, everybody's underneath the microscopes, everybody's just trying to cover
no,
what
but
they can.
the state did not do their homework
No,
in any aspect of this.
we're the test dummies.
But I
Or the
will
experiment.
say, a by right ADU at 50% of the size of the primary dwelling, or 900 square feet, is not likely to cause to
How's that
trigger
not
a
gonna trigger a stormwater
stormwater
permit? That's kind of what I'm getting.
I
How is
mean-
that not gonna trigger, because these lawyers write it, but they don't consider
But
what the town as an individual, and here we are picking up the pieces. So I just kind of wanted to put that out as
I think,
our conversation.
so we do have a special permit for a larger
Yes,
ADU, and that would probably trigger a stormwater permit.
I mean, if there was the right
If
amount
there
of
was the right amount of.
but they're going larger, so they can maybe possibly
Oh,
afford that. But
Well, and part of it here is how much land we actually have to do.
Yes.
Build on. That's, the only constraining factor there is how much property. we have.
Then you're looking at a duplex.
Yeah.
I'd also
no, I
remind the
don't
board
be
you have.
taken advantage of, I just.
I'd also remind the board that you've added the administrative project review and small projects waiver for additional flexibility for projects that are within a sweet spot of certain threshold, regardless of type of project. So there is that flexibility that I think was already there and some of it's been added to the.
You know, at the end of the day, this is about stormwater, not about affordable housing. It's about protecting our water, right, and managing stormwater. And I don't think we're doing anything that is more restrictive than what we've been doing in the past. It's the same set of requirements. And I don't know why we would change those set of requirements for any kind of housing, affordable or otherwise, right? It's not an either or, right? It's not, well, you can have affordable housing as long as you're willing to compromise your environmental standards. And so I think we should continue to stick with the stormwater bylaw we have. Right?
Well, just because the state, what changes is the state put that on the towns. There was no affordable housing before. So there was no conversation about stormwater permits or runoff or.
Yeah, that's exactly my point.
Oh, okay, so
Is
maybe
that-
I was just in. Okay,
Yeah, that's exactly my
Sorry.
point. Just because they didn't talk about it doesn't mean you keep compromising. Right?
Yes,
So-
okay, I agree.
Yes, Ms. Lewis. Hello?
Sorry, I was just, I wasn't able to unmute till just
That's
now.
okay.
Thank you. So just to circle back and likely end where I started. I agree, Karen, that, you know, a 900 square foot, ADU wouldn't likely trigger a stormwater permit. But when you include the expanded definition of pervious versus non-pervious, I think a 90 square foot structure would trigger it, you know, if you couple it with the landscaping. So I understand that the stormwater isn't about sort of affordable housing, but it is all related in the sense that, you know, if someone, to the previous speaker, and I agree, is looking at, you know, the additional cost of implementing or a mandated, you know, expensive system that is basically, you know, it could become the difference, be too cost prohibitive, that extra 20, 25, 30,000. And once it's mandated, anyone who does that work is going to, you know, jack up their prices in you know, the free economy of capitalism. So again, I would just caution the board that I understand, Ann, that it's just a definition, but the definitions are meaningful in their application. And so in and of itself, you know, is a crushed stone driveway gonna trigger it? No. In and of itself, is a 900 square foot ADU or gonna trigger it? No. But when you add it all together, it's almost like any project seemingly would trigger it, given the expanded definition. So,
No, we don't agree with that. We've talked about that, but thank you.
Okay.
We hear you.
thank you.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Cole?
All right, thank you very much.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
Sorry?
I wasn't sure you were ready for public comments, so
Oh.
if you continue, please do.
No, that's the end of my.
Because I've got a lot of comments.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Okay, all right. Greg Morris, thank you for letting us speak. I know it's a general bylaw, and you don't have to take that into consideration. Appreciate the opportunity anyways. In looking at it, what was published, the comments I had, section 4A1 is the new regulated activity, and I get it. That's Yep.
4A1.
4A1, any new development.
Page 4.
Page 4. Any new development, and that's obviously to capture the new construction house lots that are under 15,000 square feet of size and under 25% lot coverage. That's great. But I was hoping that the board might consider adding in an exemption under that, or specifically for environmental testing and soil testing. There's a similar exemption in the wetland regulations for when, for example, an engineer goes out to do perk tests on a vacant piece of land. We're gonna go out and do perk tests, we're gonna dig the soil, we're gonna do testing. And so right now, if I was to go out on a vacant piece of land, I would fall under the category here of disturbance and it's any new development, any disturbance. So I think there should be some sort of exemption for environmental testing of some kind. Installation of monitoring wells, surveying where you're cutting the line, for example, for vegetation. That's included again in the wetland regulations. It would be nice.
Surveying is included in the wetlands regulations?
Yes, it is. Yep.
This is what you wanted, so I put in what you wanted, but I think we could probably,
Exclude that.
exclude, make those
Surveying.
exclusions.
What was your other language, Greg?
Soil
I'd
testing.
look at,
soil
yeah,
testing.
soil
I'm gonna have to
testing.
get a copy of I'm gonna have to see what they say in the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, if you could just kind of follow that, it's monitoring wells, or tests, et cetera, that type of stuff. Under item 2 on this, I've always personally had a problem with the 25% increase in impervious area being a threshold for the bylaw. And where I see that being an issue in practice are people that have smaller existing houses. Can I just ask, has anyone on the board filed for a stormwater permit, been through the process on their own projects?
Yes.
All right, so the example that I have here would be, let's pretend we're in the R2 zoning district. We have a 20,000 square foot lot. It's a ranch, was built maybe in the 70s. It's 24 by 36, 1,700 square feet in size. There's a driveway. They want to add a 2-car garage. It's 24 by 24, standard 2-car garage. That's 576 square feet. That's a 39% increase. Their total lot coverage is going to be under 2,000 square feet. It's under 25% of the lot, but they have to file for a stormwater. What does that mean? A stormwater permit means that you have to hire an engineer, you have to do soil testing, you have to do calculations. At a minimum, they're 5,000. Sounds like there's quotes out there for 9,000. And that's just for the engineering portion. Then you have to physically build whatever the system is. And that can easily and quickly add up to $20,000, $30,000 on a site like this. The second example here would be the same lot, R2 zoning district, 20,000 square foot lot, but this person actually bought a bigger house in the beginning. Their house is a 3,000 square foot footprint. It already has a driveway on it. They want to add the same 24 by 24 garage. So now they're going to have close to 4,000 square feet of impervious. They're only a 13% increase. They don't require any stormwater permit whatsoever. It's the same project. They've got way more impervious than the first person. So the bylaw that section 2 there, requires a stormwater permit if your lot is over 25% lot coverage. I was going to see if the board would ever consider adding in. You can leave in that increase of impervious area by more than 25%, but add in that's only if you exceed 25% off the bat. So those lots that are under the 25% lot coverage can essentially go up to 25% without a stormwater permit.
So then you're getting 50%, where other people are only getting 25%.
Well, right now you're just catering to the 1%.
You're catering to the people that have the big houses and not the small houses.
So I guess my thought would be base it on how much impervious, how much they're gonna cover completely in the end. How much is covered completely as opposed to how much the increase is.
So right now the
That's not
bylaw,
how the bylaw's written.
so the bylaw requires a permit if you cover more than 25% of your lot is impervious. It also requires a permit if you're increasing your impervious by more than 20%, regardless of what your lot coverage is. And so what I'm saying is those lots that are 10% lot coverage, and they want to add a very small project, and they're still under that 25% lot coverage, but they're 39% increase. Still a small house, that small house that's a 39% increase in sounds big, is only 2,000 square feet. Exempts those smaller projects. This is not an MS4 requirement. It is I don't mean to offend, I believe it's a little disingenuous to say that all of these are because of MS4 compliance when they're not.
No, I would agree.
We're not taking
You're gonna run into it a lot more with ADUs. It's probably more of a conversation than just tonight.
I don't think you should go back on your requirements that you've had since 2010.
That's a recurring issue that I've brought up since 2010. It's a recurring issue where people that have smaller houses, the residents that have them, get forced into these $20,000, $30,000 stormwater permits, when the people that have big houses are given a free pass.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's what's right for the people that have a small house, in my opinion.
I'm gonna give my opinion, I think he's right.
I agree, but I don't know how to resolve
But if we can resolve it, we can resolve it. You guys give your.
If somebody put a 4,000 square foot house on a 20,000 square foot lot, wouldn't they have had to have a stormwater permit?
So this is an existing house from the
To make you-
70s or 80s.
Oh, one of those great big huge houses up on the cliffs or wherever? No.
No,
No,
Just
Any-
you're gonna run into it with my case
Anywhere.
with Jonathan Ritchie. He has 1,000 square feet. We have to take out his new patio that he just built, his hot tub, his cabana, everything that's there to build his ADU for his daughter and children to live in his house, for him to live in 700 square feet. But all that new stuff that he spent 5 years ago, 2 years ago, it all has to be ripped up.
Why does it have to be ripped up? I mean,
Because
it's
of
not,
the impervious to pervious, to reach that 25%.
no, it doesn't have, it just needs a permit. If it's an increase in 25%, then he needs a permit.
It has to go, it will trigger a stormwater permit, which is $9,000 to $20,000 to $30,000. What's easier?
To put in
To
some
take-
infiltration chambers, is that much?
Yes, it is that much, and it's cheaper to just tear up a patio than to spend 30 to 40 grand.
There's something wrong with this.
That's what we're trying to bring
There
up,
has
there is
been-
something
There
wrong
has
with
been, and
it.
we
It's
keep
some-
raising the
Yeah,
flag.
there's
Right,
something
there's
wrong with
something
this.
wrong here.
There is.
And
I
so, how
Things can
do
be
we,
I don't know if it can be resolved tonight, we're
No,
just
I don't
trying to think
think
it can't, but
No.
there is something very wrong with this, and it's not anyone's fault, we just have to figure out as a community and as a department, how to resolve this for certain cases. So it's just not catering, like Greg said, to a certain percent.
Thank
Well,
you
we
for
have
your
plenty
concern.
of 20,000 square foot lots that they are under, quote, under the 25% increase in impervious area and less than 15,000 square feet of disturbance that go through, and then who gets the calls during the storms because they didn't have a permit? Oh, you're flooding me out. We get the calls, and I can think of several right now.
There's no-
We hear the issue, I don't know if I understand it, but I hear it. I don't know how,
it's not, we can't answer this tonight.
No, it's
No,
not something.
we have to,
Conversation's gonna happen.
Talk about this and have another, somehow,
Alright, so this, we'll save this one.
send that
we'll say
particular
this
item.
particular item.
Sure.
Let's go on to.
What else do you have, Greg?
Going here, 80% thresholds,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 6. Project meeting 80% threshold. I get that you're not gonna remove this section. We're gonna be coming in at 79% on our projects. You guys tell us what the speed limit is, we're gonna come in under it. It's just like the 15,000 square feet of land disturbance, and we're coming in at 14,009. Those projects that are in this 80% threshold, this section that you're adding is gonna add about $2,000 to a project, just so you understand what the ramifications are, what you're asking here, for staking plans and as-built plans that otherwise wouldn't be required by PLSs and PEs.
Well, I guess my response to that would be, you shouldn't be charging these people all that money. I mean, that's.
But this is
These are
just a.
These are the requirements of what you're writing and requiring of a licensed
I
professional.
mean, once we set the standard,
This is putting your money where your mouth is, so you
It
can't disturb more than you say you're gonna disturb. It happens all the time.
So again, understanding that you're not going to eliminate this, telling you what the ramifications are. Under number 1, the staking plan, the applicant shall delineate the proposed land disturbance with stakes. I wondered if the word land disturbance should be limit of work instead. You know, for example, if someone's building a garage on an existing house and it's in an area of lawn, the land disturbance is gonna be the foundation of the garage, but the limit of work is gonna be 10 or 15 feet around it while they excavate and stockpile materials. I think that should be limit of work.
yeah, I would agree with that. It should be not just the whole thing. Yeah.
But the
Fair
land
to hell out.
disturbance isn't, it's the whole area that you're disturbing.
Well, that's, as long as that definition is clear.
Around a garage foundation, there might be an excavator going around it, but they're not gonna be disturbing it. It's lawn and it's gonna go back as lawn when it's done.
Yes, but it's disturbed in the
Yes,
meantime.
in the meantime, it's just, right, yes.
And we have a huge storm and then everything overflows.
If you guys, I don't have a problem changing it, but I'm just saying, it really is, you know, it's gonna be disturbed. If you drive a excavator over grass, it's gonna be disturbed.
You
I'll
have a
change it.
definition of disturb in here already too, so it will be referred back to that.
If you want limited work, we'll put limited work.
As long as it's clear what that means. Cause I agree, if you're digging a foundation, wherever the backhoe's going is tearing the areas, that's the area we're talking.
That staking plan can be by a land surveyor or engineer. And that also goes in item number 2, the as-built plan. It says a PE in the as-built plan, that's fine, but a PE can do the staking plan as well. For the land disturbance in number 1.
But certain PEs can. The civil. Exactly. I could.
That's all I have. So thank you.
Wow.
Well, I think we have to put on hold that first one.
So if you put on hold the first one, the question is, can we articulate what a counter proposal is, right? Rather than just sort of throwing on ideas.
Yeah.
What is, I mean, the objective of the stormwater control plan is to make sure stormwater gets addressed, right? And if there's a way to articulate this in a different way that accomplishes the same thing, then I guess I would say, what is that? And you all raised it, so tell me what you think it is.
Architects or engineers, everybody can speak.
I'm just kind of thinking about the scenarios of it and how you articulate that. I mean, this is almost like when a lawyer comes in and you kind of are putting us on the spot here, but not like when we gotta write down the words of it.
I'm not asking you to write down this.
Yeah,
this
but
is
it's
not-
kind of, it's like some kind of exception for smaller lots that wanna do the same thing as like a bigger, it's almost that case that you just put up. I'm just trying to think of how to put that in simple.
It's the increase in impervious area of a developed lot by 25% or more, which I would say, which results in more than 25% lot coverage.
Okay, I think that what I don't wanna do is an exception, right?
Yeah,
So
I-
if
I-
the rule is 25%, right? Then that has to be the hard limit. So if somebody has already exceeded 25% and they wanna come in and do it, then they're automatically into the stormwater.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
But if they have not, and whatever they're proposing will not, then I think I can get, I can feel comfortable with that. Because I think that was the objective of the original bylaw.
So what do you want it to say?
So basically, we want to say, if there's an increase in impervious surface, it can't exceed the absolute value of 25% of the lot area. Right?
You gotta compare it to the lot, not the house.
Lot,
Lot.
because that's the current criteria, right? 25%, no more than 25%.
Like we can have the building, we can't have the impervious space of it.
Well, the building isn't impervious,
It is
Yeah.
impervious, but it's like,
so the building counts, right?
yeah, it really
Everything
does, I'm
counts.
just saying, that's not what I was saying.
Yeah.
I was saying like, within those lots, it's like.
So I think, to address what Greg was saying, for the house that is adding a garage, the combination of those two things doesn't go over the 25%, then I think I could be okay with that, right? If it goes over the 25%, then, that's the limit. Because that at least then says that we won't have any new facilities, or whatever, that ever exceed 25% without a permit being issued. Right? Does that make sense? So what would be the counter argument to say an increase of an existing lot, an increase of 25% should require a stormwater? I'm not picking sides, I'm just trying to
No,
understand.
I know, you're trying to understand.
From what I recall, this was to try to avoid, and again, not picking sides, but try to avoid a kind of death by a thousand cuts scenario. So I think that was what I recall was the previous conversations about adding the clause that was just referred to. There's already the clause about, or proposed clause about, or render 25% or more of a lot impervious, which I think is getting, you were talking about. That's in the proposed, one clause before the one that we're talking about. But I believe the town's concern was that lots of little projects making impervious cover increases, even if they don't exceed 25% of the lot, would add up and create an issue. So again, you can argue one way or the other, but I think that was at least the intention. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was the intention
I
of
think that's.
this additional
That was the
clause
intention.
being in there for these little projects that add up.
And how, I guess how likely is that? When you say lots of little projects, I'm thinking somebody built a house, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, so they got a house, right? They want to add a garage, that's a project, right? And are they gonna build a house and then come back a year or two later and then build a garage? If they do, they do, right? I mean,
This happens all the time, they build a house, oh, then we're gonna build an addition, then we're gonna come back in and they're gonna build an ADU. And then we're
Yeah,
gonna
do
come
they do
back.
that year after year?
And then
I
they
mean,
do, then they
you know,
come back and build a pool.
Wait, can I ask you this question? They build the house, then they build an addition. When we're looking at this, are we then, and then they wanna build a garage, now they're gone beyond the 25.
So then they would need stormwater.
Yeah, whatever triggers
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
plus
So
25.
So that's what we want, right? That's
what we
too
want.
much on that part.
And every new house is gonna get a stormwater permit, the way it's written now,
Right.
which is what you want, we support that. But it's It's for the existing houses that are putting in patio, the existing houses that are putting on an addition. You know, and I'm not thinking about existing houses that are built under a stormwater permit within the last 10 years. I'm talking houses that are built
In the 70s.
60s, 70s.
But all of those would still have to fall under the threshold of the 25%, no matter
Yes.
what they're at.
Yes, and if they go over the 25% lot coverage, then they need a stormwater.
Right. And I guess that's what I'm thinking, is that, you know, for existing houses, been there a long time, somebody wants to have a garage or whatever, you know, that happens, right? And as long as it sort of holds us to our standard of stormwater management, 25% or less, that seems okay.
That includes disturbance.
It includes the disturbance, includes, like if they're putting patio, well, you know, 30 by 30 patio, but it's really gonna be 40 by 40 after the backhoes and everything you've done, right?
So yeah, you still have the limited disturbance threshold in
Right.
there. So you still have that.
Yeah.
You know, the problem on these older houses, by older, I guess I mean anything prior to 1995, that's when the state changed its definition of groundwater. And now we use modeling and redoxymorphic features to determine groundwater. And it's almost impossible to comply with stormwater on these pre-95 houses. You just can't get the groundwater separation in the soils that we have here in Scituate. You know, it's a till soil for the most part.
That's almost a counter argument though, right? Because
So-
as you add more impervious surface to houses that can already do that, you know, what we're trying to avoid beyond managing stormwater is to avoid impacting neighbors. You know, flooding your neighbor's basement, you know, thinking of Curtis Estates when we built that place, that was a mess, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of it is to protect the neighborhood from those, make sure they're thought about so that, you know, the neighbor doesn't end up with, you know, a flooding basement, if you will.
Whatever you mean.
And it's happened.
Whatever you mean.
So, you know, there's kind of multiple things going on here.
There is.
But it would seem to me if we could hold to the 25%, we
All right,
have a
we'll
much better
we'll work
chance.
on the wording
Okay.
And maybe it needs to say existing houses, right? Or
Like
something
if
like
the
that,
existing
right?
house before the current bylaw.
Rather than
or-
new, yeah. Maybe there needs to be a threshold, you know, sort of a pre-filter of what can comply, but then they would still have to comply with the 25%.
So just to make sure I understand the board's preference is to look at this threshold of the impervious cover addition becoming net on the whole lot, not just an increase of impervious coverage, but rather
Correct.
how much it applies to the whole lot.
For existing houses.
Yes.
Built before whatever.
On a full moon, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I hear everybody saying, so let's
Yeah.
try to get that by.
Before
And like
1995.
before bylaw of 1995. That seems like a good.
See, some of that's a little bit arbitrary, I feel, so, I mean, I think we'll have to work on it.
Yes,
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of category.
yeah.
Right.
We also have.
All I was trying to do is
There's a lot
get
of
enough
factors in
meat on the
this.
bones that we can start to evaluate.
Yeah, we can start to grab some.
I mean, we all know it's terrible soil in that we built here, and some just less terrible than others. I mean, that's how that works. It's bad all the way around, some's better bad. Let's say that, some's better.
But, you know,
bad.
I think we empathize with neighbors been there before 1995, where new development comes in or new house comes in, and suddenly, you know, the water flow has completely changed, right? And it's up, you know, dramatically affected. I mean, the stormwater permit requires us to look at, you know, volume, flow rates, et cetera, off the property and all of that. It requires you to think about that in order to protect your neighbors, right? So without it, you know, you're kind of assuming that if we stay within the 25% boundary, that should be sufficient to give your neighbors, you know, protection, if you will.
But it
I
also
don't know if that's
protects,
the
it
case,
also
but-
protects you.
But that,
Because it protects the homeowner too, by if having it designed properly, you shouldn't get a flooded basement and that kind of stuff too, so it protects the homeowner as well.
yeah, but you know, what I'm really thinking of it is more about, because the homeowner has complete control of whatever they're designing to build, right? I mean, they're paying for it, they can design and build whatever, you know, they can do within the building code, right? They could put they don't have to ask us to put in infiltration bases and stuff. They could do it themselves, they don't need anybody to tell them to do it.
No, they don't, but they don't wanna do
so-
anything that they don't need to do.
Yeah, but that's my point, is
Yeah.
that I'm not really trying to protect necessarily the person who's building the house, I'm trying to protect the neighbors so that their construction of the house doesn't have a dramatic impact on the neighbors, right? Because I think the person who's building the house has complete control over what they do and don't do with drainage.
So what does the board want? Do you want to continue this public hearing
Yes.
to?
Yeah.
Try to get the language right,
Yes, for that, yeah.
and let's
Well, no,
kind of
I
work
mean,
through the
there was
elements
there were
of it.
two things. There was
Two paragraphs.
There was the 4A1, you know, the getting that language.
Which one was that?
For a one.
You know, except for soil testing, environmental
Oh, yeah.
testing.
I
So,
think that. should
there's
be
that. and then there's the 4A2. 4A2. So those, the only two things that everybody, you know, and I'll do the other changes with put a P E in there. Any other changes? That's it. Okay. So for conservative sake, I'm just gonna say, continue the public hearing to 7:15 on the 22nd, for sections 4A1 and 2.
So moved. I believe Greg was referring to page 6 or C2. I think.
No,
No, okay.
It was 4A1.
No, yes, but for the second one.
Karen said she was gonna add.
I'm gonna change those.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
change
Yeah,
those.
that one's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, gotcha.
The sticky wicket one is 4A2. 1 and 2.
I made the motion as.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, Nick, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was it. Thank you all.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Yep.
Please know our firms are here to help to bounce off anyone who's I know that's not, to do that or not, but we're the ones encountering it and then bringing it to you.
Hi.
How
are you? Yeah, we're only an hour behind, public meetings.
But you see, the way I did that, because if you were done early,
Yeah.
then we don't want anybody,
I know.
you know, that's why.
And I'm sure you're burnt a lot as usual, right? Absolutely.
Oh, I have ADHD. No, you do. I'm trying to hold it together back there. but- Lost. No, just to stop it. Anyway, my name is Jonathan Rich. And, my wife Maria and I live at 28 Alley. I'm not sure if you've seen it.
Yep, I would buy
Very
the chair.
cute, cottagey. If you watch the Hallmark channel, you will. No, I take my pride in it. I did it all about 8 years ago before my heart attack. It's just one spot. At any rate, my wife Maria and I are, my daughter Leah, who's a nurse practitioner, and her husband, who just got out of the Navy 2 years ago. He just got his, bachelor's degree with and they can't afford a home. So we're giving them our home, not that I'm well, far from it. And we're gonna live in a one bedroom little add-on, which is fine. I don't need any big, I'm still trying to, she doesn't fit that big, I'm trying.
Can't give you a lot
So
of.
I don't need, and so, there's just one last thing. Before I even start this, a good friend of mine that I've known for many years, Ralph Cole, he was on the street for me. He's the original one who did the boundaries for the home in 1964 or whatever. And I had him do it again, when I bought the home. And I suspect he was Mr. Thompson before I even began with this. And now I'm blessed by God to have Carly and Dick, Rockwood, and my builders who I grew up with 1,000 years ago, when I lived in Hingham, before it was all snooty, it was working class. And Stephen Asmus, and he's fantastic. So I hired the vet, he's great, we used to build forts out in the woods. Now he's building homes in grass, for years, he's about to retire. So anyway, that's why this is Carly from Rockville, that's Dick, and I cannot be more blessed by God. So this is a God thing. So let's go on.
Why don't you present your page?
Everyone, I'm Carly Tobias from Rockwood Design, 1020 Plain Street. I'm their Director of Operations and Project Management, and I do all of our ZBA applications. As of right now, I don't have time to design anymore because of these applications that are going through. This is Jonathan, and we are doing a 700 square foot ADU. We are adding on an addition to his current house to be able to have a 700 square foot ADU. Because his current house is about 1,000 square feet, which means he would only have 500 square feet. I don't know many people that can live in 500 square feet or 2 people that can live in 500 square feet. So we are just trying to make this affordable and accommodate on this lot. I don't know if the board has many questions. I was pretty thorough with my application and the sections and the regulations that we followed under.
Can you just walk through like means of egress? Parking?
Yep, absolutely. So, parking right now, you can fit 3 cars on the lot. And for egress, we have 2 egress. We have one second. You have one on the right-hand side of the house and one in the back.
Oh, I see. So that's in the, it's kind of to the north, this is one. So really, we're not counting any kind of egress into the primary dwelling.
No.
Okay. And where's the parking?
The parking, if you look at the site plan, it's on public plan. So they have like a U driveway, you can fit 2 cars on that, and then you can fit one on the side. Yeah.
Does that get,
No.
I don't think it changes, does it become a driveway?
It doesn't become a driveway, you don't have to
So it's just on the
lawn,
on the grass.
if they need that parking spot, which they don't need that, but I wanted to show it to reach the requirements, but I don't have to pave it, I don't have to put shells on it or anything like that to reach any kind of code, so it showed that a car can park there, car can. Which they don't need that third car.
But they need to show the parking because it's more than a half mile from MTA.
Exactly.
Ferry terminal, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And all the lighting on property line is down.
Yeah. Yes.
Is. So nothing shining in the neighbor's house.
Nope.
That's the fully,
What's that?
lots of landscape going on. I drive by every day to do the super, it's like,
Plus that'll be a condition that any light will stop.
Yeah. No, I live in Marshfield and my neighbor has a set light that goes right in my son's room. Well, it turned, he's 2 years old and lives up every night.
From dark and shade,
I know I did do that, but it's still one of those things like,
and they won't shut it off.
it's on the property.
Gosh, it's a nice neighborhood, I have a little boy and I just,
Yeah.
Sunshine.
And dare I ask how much impervious surface you're gonna have?
Yep, you can dare ask that, because believe me.
That's not the matter of the ADU bylaw, so I haven't even looked at it, because that's not the matter of the ADU bylaw. If they need that permit, they have to.
I get it, I'm
apply.
asking because of
You
our last
can dare ask
conversation.
that, they're impervious, they are right now, they were at 21.4 and they're gonna be at 21.5. So I know the main conversation this year is impervious to pervious, and where is all this runoff water going? And how much can each town afford for this runoff water? And every town is paying for new water departments too, and we're trying to get accurate calculations so we can build our water departments to.
the ability to bring treatment plant, right?
Yeah. So isn't Duxbury, I'm from Duxbury, and Marshfield, we all are. And I understand, I don't wanna wash out my neighbor.
Separate, I couldn't read Will's comment.
Will's comment is that his septic tie-in to the town is clay, which is not to code. So to make it to code, you need to make it PVC, which is $16,000. I don't know if the board is aware of that. That's not on top of it. If you do trigger the stormwater permit, that could be another $40,000 to 30. So now we're talking 50 grand to the town. Your town is the most expensive, 16 grand. I live in Duxbury, it's 9 grand there. It's crazy.
Again, that's not the matter of the ADU.
We don't set those
bylaw.
rates.
I know you don't, but I don't know if you're aware of
We are.
it. Okay,
Alright, so in this ADU, the ADU is gonna be 766 square feet. The principal dwelling is gonna be 1530. They're doing some small additions to the principal dwelling so that they, can get the 766. It meets the bylaw, it should be approved. And we cover ourselves by saying all requirements of the Board of Health, Building Department, Zoning Board of Appeals, Department of Public Works, Fire Department, Conservation Commission, and other town agencies must be met prior to occupancy of the ADU. So we won't sign off on an occupancy permit if all the requirements are met. We won't sign off on a building permit. So, it meets the requirements, it should be approved.
Yeah, bit once, twice shy, obviously. Okay,
Are we ready?
do you have a message?
I move to make the following findings of fact. 1, on December 16, 2025, Jonathan and Maria Ritchie, through their agent Rockwood Design Inc., applied for accessory dwelling unit, ADU, site plan administrative review for an ADU within an addition to an existing principal dwelling on the property of 28 Hadley Road. 2, according to the deed, the property of 28 Hadley Road is owned by Jonathan and Maria Ritchie. Both owners and the agent signed the application for the site plan administrative review for the ADU. 3, based on a floor plan submitted by the applicant, the floor area of the proposed detached ADU will be approximately 766 square feet. The principal dwelling is 1,530 square feet, according to the applicant's application, with area calculated from the inside of the exterior wall. This meets the size requirements of 530.1A of the zoning bylaw for ADUs, as the bylaw provides 50% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. For the ADU will be a complete separate housekeeping unit, and there will only be one accessory dwelling on the lot. This, all right.
And the gross floor area is taken from inside walls and inside wall density.
all right, 5, the ADU is subordinate to the, existing single-family home. 6, the property is in the residential A3 zoning district. 7, the proposed ADU will have access to 2 doors, one on the side of the ADU and one in the rear of the ADU. 8, at least one private off-street parking space is provided for the ADU, as the ADU is located more than 0.5 miles from a commuter rail station, ferry terminal, or bus station. 9, the ADU will be serviced by town water and town sewer. DPW requirements for water and sewer connections will be met. 10, the application meets the standards of the Scituate zoning bylaw for an ADU. Is there a second for discussion?
Second.
Okay, go back to number 3. It's not a proposed detached. It's part of the house.
Oh, yeah, it's already the house.
And, okay, I have a question.
AD
It's
within
connected, but
addition.
there isn't a connection to the main house.
I understand, but it's,
It's not a
it's
detached.
not
AD
detached.
Yes.
within an addition.
Yeah,
It's an addition,
it's
Right,
yes.
okay.
It's a linear addition.
Now, maybe I'm opening, maybe, I don't know. Are you going to use the same sewer pipe?
And that's not, that's not for us
Yes, you have to,
determine.
you do have to do that, but for other ADUs, you usually have to put in a tank if your septic doesn't reach Title V.
I'm just, okay.
There's a lot to
They don't-
digest.
They don't have to pay the 16,000 connection fee because it's within an
That was my
existing
point.
primary
That was
dwelling.
my point.
It's within the
That's-
principal dwelling.
Which is why,
Detached has to.
and it's not
It's
detached.
not detached.
Right.
This is not detached.
I'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then that's awesome, Jonathan.
Okay,
16 grand.
Great, every dollar helps, I really mean it.
No, it really does. It really does count. But if that is like,
Well, that's up
because I would love that, but
That's up to Will.
I understand that, but.
Will told
Part
me
of the
that
whole.
he has to build, it's a clay connection,
Yeah.
and that he has to make it into PVC.
Yeah.
When you do
Well, he'd
that,
have to do that anyway.
you'd have to do that with an addition. Just an addition, not even an ADU, so adding that square feet.
No, we need a vote.
Oh,
Did you say as amended?
As amended.
is there a second?
Second. as
All in
amended.
favor?
Aye.
I move to approve the site plan administrative review of an ADU at 28 Hadley Road with the following conditions. 1, except for any changes necessary to meet these conditions, any construction shall substantially conform to architectural plans by Rockwood Design Inc. for the received residence, 28 Hadley Road, Scituate, Mass, dated 12/15/2025, consisting of the following sheets: cover, A2 elevations, A2.1 elevations, A2.2 elevations, A2.3 elevations, A3 existing floor plan, A3.1 proposed first floor plan, S1 floor plan framing plan, S1.1 proposed foundation plan, ASF square footage is location plan showing proposed addition, 28 Hadley Road, Scituate, Mass, parcel ID 45-11-10 by Stedback and Taylor, Inc., for the 10/2025, with revisions through 12/15/25. The ADU cannot be used for short-term rental unit as defined in the general bylaw. A restrictive covenant shall be recorded against the property to that effect to any occupancy permit for the accessory dwelling unit. The covenant shall run to the town and be enforceable by the town through injunctive relief and with property owner required to pay the town reasonable legal fees and costs for successful enforcement of any violation of the restricted covenant. 3, no further expansion of the ADU floor plan is allowed without further review by the planning board. 4, the owner is not required to live in either the principal or accessory dwelling unit. The owner shall own both the principal and the ADU. 5, all requirements of the Board of Health, Building Department, Zoning Board of Appeals, Department of Public Works, Fire Department, Conservation Commission, and other town agencies must be met prior to occupancy of the ADU. 6, the ADU shall conform to all applicable standards in the building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, fire, and health code requirements. 7, water and sewer connection must meet all requirements of the DPW Water Division and the DPW Sewer Division for the ADU dwelling. 8, any lighting installed shall be down lighting and not shed light on abutting properties. 9, construction work shall not begin prior to 7 a.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. on Saturdays and shall cease no later than 7 p.m. or sunset, whichever is earlier. No construction shall take place on Sundays or on legal state and federal holidays. Construction includes the idling of vehicles, delivery of materials to the site, and other construction activities. No parking of any vehicles shall occur on the public way. 10, runoff from the ADU shall not be increased from the property. 11, erosion and sedimentation control devices shall be installed to prevent any erosion or sedimentation from leaving the site during construction. Silt socks shall be used as necessary along with a stabilized construction entrance. 12, the decision must be recorded at the Registry of Deeds prior to a building permit being issued.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you guys very much for your time tonight.
Thank you for your comments.
My daughter will be thrilled, and, I appreciate it. You like the house with the front?
Beautiful place. I've gone 55 years. I'm ready.
Are you what?
I know revenue.
Oh, good. Oh, no, I go for the looks. My mother was a public art teacher, but she loved color and for the ride.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Safe travels. So now we have to divorce 799 and 801 Country Way to start getting this review.
And when I see you around, I'll tell you.
Please do. I have a motion. I move to endorse the plans for the site plan administrator review.
Thank you.
Right.
And 801?
Yeah,
That's it, yeah.
all right. North Situate Village District, Outer Village, VCNNSVOV at 799 and 801 Country Way, revised dated 12/22/25 as conditioned in the decision for the project dated November 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All business, no business. So we'll approve on minutes.
Minutes, we have minutes. You're right, somewhere. I move the minutes for 12/18/2025 and the minutes for 12/11/2025.
Yes.
In favor?
Aye.
Accounting,
Money?
yeah, we spent. I move to approve the following purchase orders, number 260062221, in the amount of $160.80 for mileage reimbursement for the town planner.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have our news or reports.
Nothing's happening.
I did not go to, but I watched, ZBA. At first, it was quite, it wasn't a long meeting, first was like a regular bill. The second was a little more involved, it was a preliminary, there was some discussion that they needed to come to us first, so it kind of went back and forth. So it's a lot that sits right next to Stellwagen. There's 3 cottages there.
Henry Lane.
Yeah, it's amazing. So they wanted sort of to get permission to know that if the lots were divided, they would be considered pre-existing non-conforming. Does that make sense?
They would be like that, right?
Yeah.
Then
So
they will need to do an A and R,
Right.
which has been filed,
Right,
which has been filed already.
right. They were kind of going back and forth on like, you should be a planning person, we should be here. It was kind of confusing, but that was.
I watched that as well.
Did you? It was interesting. That was interesting. The history, the woman that called in. I don't know if it's. Yeah.
She, yeah, here. What's her name, Mary?
Mary Jenkins?
Mary Jenkins.
Yeah.
But that whole thing goes back to the late eighties, the early nineties, when they were messing around with it, and then nothing ever came of it. It was basically called Maravito, who was former chairman of Scituate Planning Board, to, have, a summer retreat,
And duplex.
whatever.
Well, it's interesting because at high tide, you could literally step off the porch and go swimming. So it won't be there in 10 years. It's. Karen, I am still busy.
Yes, I'm really gonna be busy next week. Hatherley School, two of the infiltration systems, one, under the school, under the gym and under the playground area have been inspected at the bottom. And, the infiltration devices are being installed. Steel is supposed to come in the next 2 weeks, and that will have a very big crane with it too. I've asked them to let me know, when exactly it's coming, and reminded them that it's the police who determine if they need a detail. When I was out there the other day, there was a pile of material and at least a foot of frost had been taken out so that they could get to the bottom of the infiltration areas. So, it's progressing. I don't know when I'll have to go to the advisory. I'm gonna say I'm not gonna be in any mood to go after the meeting on the 22nd. So, they'll have to schedule us planning another time. Because we won't know 100% until after the next meeting. So, that's all I have to say at the moment.
Anybody else?
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?